Hey guys! So a while back someone had asked me for some book recommendations, and I don't read a ton terribly. I more listen to audiobooks, which makes sense because it helps firm up my skills as a voice actor and as a audiobook narrator, knowing what's in the market, knowing what styles of narration are trendy, but also it just helps me to up my book consumption because as a writer, you want to consistently be consuming stories, whether it's to bolster your own or to know what not to do. And so I wanted to make this video of some audiobooks that I've listened to in the last couple of months to share with you guys because I think you might enjoy them. But before we move on to the next part of the video, I do want to say that today's video is being sponsored by a mattress company called Bed Story, and they were kind enough to send me a mattress of theirs to review and to show you guys. So let's get started on that.
So when you receive your mattress, there are 5 easy steps to take to unravel and enjoy it. The first is, of course, to open the box and remove the wrapped mattress out of it and to place it on your bed. The mattress is light enough that I was able to carry it through the house, upstairs, and into my room without a problem. Although I did use my sister to help me flip it once it was on the bed frame, just because leverage with 2 people is a little easier than 1. After that, cut the plastic bag with scissors, but don't cut the plastic bag that's inside. Because this mattress comes vacuum sealed, it needs a chance to rebound over time. It takes about 48 hours or 2 days to rebound in the summer, but because this is the winter time, it takes between 4 and 7 days to completely rebound from being vacuum sealed and shipping. After you've carefully cut the clear plastic bag along the edges, the mattress will instantly begin to decompress. After you carefully cut the clear plastic bag along the edges, the mattress will instantly begin to decompress. Remove the bag from above and beneath. After that, allow the bed to fully recover before adding bed linens. So one of my favorite parts of this mattress is the back support that I've gotten it. There are over 500 coils in the queen mattress size, which helps to support the cooling technology, as well as support from any angle you lay it on the bed.
So, it has been 3 or 4 days since we unraveled the mattress. It's set up nicely, I've been able to sleep on it a few nights, and guys, I really like it. I'm not just saying that because they're sponsoring this video. I was using a purple mattress before this, which is more of a softer mattress. This is more of a medium firm build, and it does wonders for my back. Teenagers wouldn't appreciate it, but someone who's well into their adult life would. Hello! Also, I can't keep the cats off of it, but that's just cats being cats. So one of the things that I like about this mattress actually links to a lifestyle change that I've had to go through in the last year or so. There's a layer of latex underneath the top layer that helps keep the mattress clean. It's naturally hypoallergenic, and it's resistant to things like mold and bacteria and dust mites. So it's a good choice for people who are sensitive to things like that. Even though I don't have an allergy to a lot of irritants, I've started cutting back and changing products for what I use in daily life, whether it's my detergent for laundry or the lotions that I wear, and I've noticed a huge improvement in my health. So this mattress has helped me on my journey to treating my body better than I have been in the past. So in addition to the healthy design, this mattress has a knit layer of fabric on top, which means that when I sweat at night or whoever is using the mattress is sweating at night, it'll absorb that moisture and dry it quickly, allowing the body, the human body, to breathe throughout the night, which results in a cooler sleep. I don't know about anyone watching this, but I certainly overheat at night, and it's been a problem. I've changed sheets for it. I've done my research into what I can do to have a cooler sleep. I sleep with a fan, things like that, and I've only spent 3 or 4 nights on this bed and I haven't had an issue with overheating yet, which is wonderful to have. So the inside of the mattress, including that latex layer and all of the coils inside, are designed for the airflow to help your body breathe, which again adds to the she's not hot technology. In addition to that, this mattress doesn't need a box spring to help it breathe. Many times mattresses need something underneath it so that it doesn't grow mold throughout time, things like that. Whether that means you're putting it on a bed frame that has slats or putting it on box spring. This mattress can go directly on the floor if you needed it to, and you wouldn't have to worry about it at all, which is a relief. I have my life together somewhat, So I have a mattress frame. I'm not moving around anymore, but I was a college kid that used to move apartments every 4 months, and it would have been very convenient to be able to just throw the mattress on the ground when I needed to. So overall, this is a great mattress. It's designed for any kind of sleeper, whether you're a tummy sleeper, a side sleeper, a back sleeper. It's designed to give you a great night's rest while supporting your back, which I mentioned earlier, if you're not a teenager, you probably care about your back support during your sleep. This mattress is 10 inches in height. It's a medium firmness. It has the ultimate kind of support that you would want. There's low motion transfer and a 10-year warranty. So thank you so much to Bed Story for sponsoring this video. Just wanted to let you guys know I'll be looking at my phone throughout a lot of this because that's where all of my notes are. And even though I have talking points and I love talking to the camera, I don't have the script memorized, so. The first book that really stands out in my mind is The Mystwick School of Musicraft by Jessica Khoury and narrated by Susie Jackson. Now, I say surprising because when I got the book, I didn't think I'd enjoy it. Before I move into that, I would give this book overall, this audiobook, a rating of 4.5, with the story being 4.5 stars and the performance being 4.5 stars. So like overall, like that's a pretty solid book. I genuinely enjoyed it when I didn't think I would. The story goes that Amelia Jones, the main character, wants to go to the same school of musicraft that her late mother attended, where musicians learn to create magic. She botches the audition and feels like a failure, only to find out that there is a mishap and the school's going to let her in on a trial basis. So my thoughts on this is usually I don't like books about music, especially like music and magic. To be candid, I was a music major in college, so I've seen a lot of like poser people where they say they love music and music conquers all, but they haven't put in the time and effort to really learn and understand it. They just want to show off that they can play 1 or 2 songs on the piano, or that they took piano lessons when they were like 6 or 7, right? Which, if that's you, more power to you, but cultivate that talent instead of going around bragging what you can do. And there are people who have dedicated time and money and all of their energy into it. There's just kind of a holier than thou attitude that I find a lot of times when people who aren't musicians try to write books about being a musician. Oftentimes when I'm reading books by authors who don't have a ton of music experience outside of, you know, middle school or high school, they're often over-explaining what a cadence is or how to play the instrument that they had studied in middle school or high school. Or they'll talk about some musical piece like it's the best thing ever when really it's just kind of a music standard in our music world, right? So it came as a surprise when I found myself enjoying this book. Now, if I thought I wasn't going to like it, why did I get it? Honestly, I don't know. But the author did a great job of explaining to the audience what was going on in terms of musicality without over-explaining it or talking down to the audience, which I really appreciated. She did great world building with how music can be magic in this world, the spells that they create, and she's just got a whole magical system down, which I genuinely appreciated. I listened to this book first at home and then on a day trip that I had to take to Chicago for work to pick up an order, and I was very disappointed when the book was done because it was really good writing and it was good narration. Overall, 4.5 stars. I enjoyed it when I didn't expect to. And this book is available from Audible for 1 credit, like all of the other books that you'll see in the video today. However, this is also available for the cheap price of $5 and I think it's 37 cents? 57 cents from Amazon.com, which is quite a bit cheaper than most audiobooks and definitely cheaper than an Audible credit. The paperback version of this book, the paperback and Kindle version, aren't out yet. It won't be released until January 21st, 2020, but the audiobook is available on Audible right now and Amazon.com because they sell Audible books on there, I guess. So next up is The Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, narrated by Emily Ellett. Now, before I begin, I just want to say I loved Margaret Rogerson's last book, An Enchantment of Ravens, and I think that's why I was so disappointed in this book, is because I was hoping for not necessarily a similar experience, but a similar enjoyment level, and I didn't get that from this book. If it had been done by anyone else, I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more. Not a lot, but at least a little, because An Enchantment of Ravens was one of, if not the best book I read in 2018. And this is her first book since then. It's the second book this author has ever written. And so I was thinking that maybe I had a new favorite author, when in reality she might have just written one of my favorite books, and there's a difference between the two. Anyway, so overall I'd give the book 3.5 stars, with the story being 3 stars and the performance being 4 stars. So in this story, the main character, Elizabeth, wants to be what's called a warden. She grew up in a library filled with grimoires, which are books on how to do magic. Only in this universe, the books themselves can do magic as well, and they're kind of unruly, and they have a class system, with a level 10 being the most dangerous kind of grimoire, whereas like a level 3 or level 4 is nothing to worry about too much. And wardens are the ones who patrol the libraries and keep the grimoires safe from people who want to steal them, like sorcerers. Sorcerers and wardens, they don't get along. Anyway, through a bunch of mishaps, she finds herself on trial at the Capitol for a crime that she wasn't at fault for, and ends up having to team up with a sorcerer called Nathaniel, who's actually he's from a prestigious sorcerer family, excuse me, with his demonic servant, and she doesn't want to work with a sorcerer, but he's her only option at this point. Did I enjoy the book? It was okay. It was an okay book. It was a good read. Like, it killed the time. I enjoyed the time that it killed. But it's nowhere close to one of the favorite books that I've read this year. And again, I mentioned my bias. I think if I didn't have that bias, it would be different. I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. But overall, it was surprisingly lackluster. I was left feeling a bit disappointed. Now, in terms of age range, I would rate this young adult, like late middle school, early high school. There weren't any adult scenes in it, but there was some pretty heavy pining and a hot kiss in there, so just as a warning. The School of Musicraft is definitely like a late elementary school, middle school kind of book that, I mean, the main character is 7th grade, so I figured I should point out the age range there. Now then, The Guinevere Deception by Kiersten White, narrated by Elizabeth Nolden. I said her last name wrong, I'm so sorry. I have not read any other Kiersten White books. I know that a lot of people really like them. She is a fairly prominent fantasy author right now. I saw it as an ad on Instagram, the Guinevere Deception, the day before it came out, excuse me, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And so the plotline is, you have Princess Guinevere, who's coming across the border to marry King Arthur, only he knows and she knows that she's not the real Princess Guinevere. We never find out the girl's real name in the first book, but they call her Princess Guinevere because that's who she's pretending to be. And she's pretending to be Guinevere so that she can marry Arthur, because magic isn't allowed in Camelot, it's been banned. But she was actually Merlin's apprentice and also Merlin's daughter. And so she uses magic to keep Arthur safe. Arthur knows about it, but no one else does. Anyway, I'm very happy that this is the first book in a trilogy, because as long as the book was, I am desperate for more. I genuinely enjoyed the story. Overall, I give it 4.5 stars, with the story being 4.5 stars and the performance as 4.5 stars. Like, you can't do much better. It was very well done. It's essentially a retelling of the world of Camelot, if you didn't pick that up from the description already. And even though the plotline comes across as man versus man, Guinevere trying to protect Arthur from everything else that's going on in the world, really it's man versus self, because Guinevere is pretending to be someone she's not. And she has this internal battle of, well, who am I? And as the book progresses and she finds out more about Merlin and he's not the guy she thought he was, it creates such a good internal conflict. And that's really why I loved the book, is the character fighting that internal conflict without dragging on the thoughts in a circle. That's something that I need to be better at in my writing, is I often loop the character's thoughts. Also, the romance between her and Mordred is just Alright, like the whole time I'm like, oh, her and Arthur, cute, but Mordred though, right? So my only regret is that I read it right when it came out instead of waiting until the trilogy was out. Next up is The Vine Witch by Luanne G. Smith, narrated by Susanna Jones. I'd never heard of either the narrator or the author before this book. I believe it was the author's debut. Overall, I'd give it 3.5 stars, with the story at 3 stars and the narration at 4 stars. But the world building, that's 5 stars, and I'll get into that in a second. So, the story. a vine witch is someone who works in a vineyard making wine, right? And so the vine witch of the story, the main character, finally pulls herself out of a curse after 7 years and is bitter with revenge towards her ex-lover, whom she believes to have cursed her to get out of a marriage proposal. Anyway, the story itself was kind of meh, and I didn't feel like a ton happened in the book, which was surprising because of the word count. I was still super immersed in the book as it went along. Like, how am I 5-6 hours in and barely anything's happened, but I'm still enjoying this quite a bit? And it's because of the world building. And oftentimes when authors ramble on in world building, it's not necessarily the best thing because they're over describing things and they're not letting the reader do anything for themselves. But this author, Miss Luanne G. Smith, I had to look down at that, does such a great job of just eloquently explaining things without letting the audience feel like they're in a "this is how the world works" lecture. And I appreciated that so much. I'm going to give the next book Miss Smith writes a chance before I decide whether or not I like her as an author, because again, beautiful world building, but the story was just kind of like it was okay. Also, tons of alcohol in there. I don't know why I was surprised because it's literally about a witch who makes wine. But as far as age range goes, it's young adult. There are a lot of alcohol references and an implied romantic scene. Next up is Serpent and the Dove by Shelby I can't even say her name, Mahurin, narrated by Holter Gra and Saskia Marleveld. Saskia Marleveld. I'll get it eventually. And this is one of the books where it's male and female perspective changing back and forth, which is why they have 2 narrators for it. Overall, 4 stars. Story's 4.5 stars, tacked off a half star for how I got into the book. I'll talk about that in a second. And the performance, Miss Saskia, 4.5 stars. Loved it. Holter Gra, 2.5. The book itself, Louise LeBlanc fled her coven 2 years ago and swore off magic. So in this world, witches are being hunted by the church. And if you're found, you're burned at the stake, right? You're a witch. Anyway, so through a genuine mishap, Lou finds herself with no choice but to begrudgingly marry a huntsman of the church, Reed Diggory, who vows to kill any witch he comes across because he's a huntsman for the church. Like, that's what you do, right? Anyway, so the story itself is good. I really liked the story, and it's probably my favorite fall release of the year. So every single book that I've talked about thus far has been released sometime in October or later of 2019. There's only one book on this list that isn't, and I'll mention it. It's the very last one. It's The Gentleman's Guide to Virtue. Even though I loved the book and I cannot wait for the sequel, it took me a long time to get into the book. Like, I was probably 2 or 3 hours into the book before I was like, okay, yeah, okay, I'm listening, right? There are some religious bits thrown in. It's not, the author never tells us if it's the Catholic Church per se, although it's implied. It's definitely some kind of Christian church persecuting the witches. Also, witches are only ever female. There's no such thing as a male witch. The narration, however, hurt the book's enjoyment. So Saskia, who voices Lou's perspective, did a great job. No complaints there. But Holter Gra's voices, they weren't always consistent between characters. And what's far more annoying is that he rushed his narration. He didn't let commas and periods breathe as they're supposed to while he was rushing sentences. And not only was it hard to get used to that, it was also a stark contrast between when they switched narrators. And so right about the time that I was like, okay, well maybe I'm kind of getting used to him, boom, we're back to Saskia, who does a great job of narrating at a pace that narrators tend to use, the industry standard pace. So that, it was disappointing. And if he does play, I liked his voice, but if he does play Reed in the second book, I hope he slows down. Holy cow. As far as age range goes, technically this is young adult, but there's an adult scene in there, Also, Lou's favorite song she often sings is about a bartender with big I don't know if I can say that word on YouTube anymore. The next book I really did not like. Everything You Are by Carrion King, narrated by Will Demron. I don't even know why I got this book. Okay, I do. I realized that everything that I was listening to make this video was like witch-based or magic or fantasy, and so I wanted to step onto something a little more realistic, more novel-based than fantasy. And I want my Audible credit back. So overall, I'd give the audiobook 3.5 stars, with the story at a 2 and the performance at a 3.5. Audio quality wasn't what I expected. Like, it wasn't bad. Whoever recorded it thought the people listening to it would be listening to it through earbuds or an Alexa. So not bad quality, but not what I would expect from an Audible book. But then again, I know how Audible recordings work nowadays, so I'm also not surprised. Especially if they audition through ACX. As far as Mr. Dameron's performance goes, some of his voices were a little tight. He did a great job with voicing infuriated characters though, which was nice. So the story, Braden Healy, he's an ex-first chair cellist. Amazing cellist, amazing talent, but he ends up becoming an alcoholic after he gets into an accident which leaves him with impaired use of his hands, meaning he can't play the cello anymore. He can, you know, hold a coffee mug or something, but not much more. And so after 11 years of being an alcoholic, an accident happens and his ex-wife and son are killed, leaving him with a very angsty 17-year-old daughter who's like, okay, let's live together, but only for 6 months, because then I'm an adult and I can do what I want, so I don't have to live with my aunt in Canada. Also, you don't run the household, I do, because you're a failure of a father, right? There's also a character named Fee who thinks that if Braden doesn't play his cello, more bad things are going to happen because the cello her grandfather sold to him is cursed, and that's why his life is a mess right now, is because he stopped playing. Anyway, so back when I was talking about the School of Musicraft book, I mentioned how there are authors who are like, music is the answer to everything. Music solves all the problems, and world without music is just, right? This is one of those books. Like, couldn't take it seriously. It was very much like, if only you returned to playing music, your life would be so much better. Also, very unrealistic. There were some scenes that were realistic in the interactions between the daughter and the father. A lot of the daughter's actions in her grief are very realistic, whether it's her suicide attempt, yada yada yada. But near the end of the book, like, there's a weird hypnosis scene that is completely unrealistic. I like the Alcohol Anonymous group that called themselves the Angel. That was a cute touch. But a lot of their actions were more unrealistic towards the end of the book, and it was very disappointing. That's just what it was. It was a disappointing book, and I wish I hadn't branched out. Anyway, age range goes, it's a young adult, but like older young adult. There's themes of suicide and alcoholism in there. Actually, it goes quite into depth into the vices of alcoholism and what it's like to yearn drinking. The main character loses her virginity in detail. Anyway, just disappointed overall. No thank you. Next. So the last book that I want to talk about is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, written by Mackenzi Lee, narrated by Christian Coulson. So Mackenzi Lee is not my favorite author of all time, but she wrote my favorite character of all time, Henry Monty Montague, and he's the lead character in this book. This is the first book in a series. And Christian Coulson happens to be my current favorite narrator. He's actually the guy who played the young Tom Riddle in the Harry Potter series. Fun fact. Okay, so overall, it's 5 stars all across the way, and I get that I'm biased because I love Henry. I love Monty so much. Also, I love Christian Coulson as a narrator. So, like, anyway, so Henry Montague is terribly in love with his best friend Percy, okay? And he's expected to go on this tour of Europe, which is common for, you know, noble or rich heirs, I guess, to do in like 18th century Europe, right? And he expects to, you know, get drunk and have some ladies and chill around with his best friend Percy, except that Monty is not the most reliable person. He's kind of a jerk. And he's very flamboyant. So his father ends up sending a chaperone with him on his tour, and his sister, so he's incredibly bored out of his mind, and nothing's going like he wanted, and he's never going to see Percy again because he's going to medical school in Holland after this, blah 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 blah. After he runs naked through the gardens of Versailles, excuse me, he ends up getting robbed by highwaymen and chewed out by the love of his life, and ends up looking for a panacea, a cure-all for Percy to help him become healthy again. Yeah, to cure the boy of his dreams, right? This book is not what I expected it to be, but I love it. Okay, the slow burn between Monty and Percy is just Okay, it raked my heart like coals over a fire, okay? And Monty, he's such a flawed character and I love him for it. Okay, he's mischievous and unapologetic, and his attitude just cracks me up throughout the book, and Mackenzi Lee is so great at writing humor. She was a fanfiction author before she started writing books, and there's a lot of good points that she makes throughout the book. Anyway, I've enjoyed this story more than once. I've listened to it a few times since I got it earlier this year, and I'm looking forward to the novella she just put out from Monty's point of view. It came out November 22nd, last Friday, so I'm looking forward to enjoying that pretty soon. I do have a bias for Christian Coulson. I'm actually in the middle of a book that he just put out in October 1st, the narrator, that is called Fireborn, enjoying that as well. Anyway, as far as the age range goes for The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, it is older, younger adult. It's LGBTQTA plus novel, as Monty has a thing for both skirts and breeches. But oh my goodness, I love the story. Like, hands down, Monty is my favorite character. I think I've made that clear by now. Anyway, so that's the books that I've been enjoying in the last couple of months. One more time, thank you so much to Bed Story for sponsoring this video and sending me this awesome mattress, woohoo! And I will catch you guys in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to stay up to date on the latest videos I put out. And if you'd like another video like this, where I talk about audiobooks that I've been listening to, just let me know in the comments section. I'll catch you next time!